The amber glow of the cigarette illuminated Victoria's face as she inhaled deeply, the smoke curling around her like a shield. She hadn't smoked in 3 years. Not since she took over as CEO. Not since she promised herself she'd be better than her father. Yet here she was, standing on her office balcony at midnight, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears, all because her assistant, the quiet, dedicated single father she'd secretly fallen for, had asked to leave early for a date. If you're feeling that twist in your stomach already, that ache of wanting something you can't have, stick with me. This story might just help you understand your own heart a little better. Like and subscribe if you've ever found yourself falling for someone who doesn't even know you're alive in that way. Victoria Chen had built her empire from the ground up. At 35, she was the youngest CEO in her industry, feared and respected in equal measure. The glass walls of her corner office overlooked Manhattan, a daily reminder of how far she'd climbed. But glass walls couldn't protect her from what she felt for James Sullivan, her executive assistant of 2 years. James had started working for her shortly after his wife died. A single father with a 5-year-old daughter named Lily, he never complained about the long hours or Victoria's demanding nature. He anticipated her needs before she voiced them, brought her coffee exactly how she liked it, and somehow managed to make her laugh even on her worst days. In the cutthroat world of corporate America, he was the only person who saw beyond her title. That morning had begun like any other. Victoria arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, James already at his desk with her schedule printed and her first coffee of the day steaming beside a fresh blueberry muffin. "Good morning, Ms. Chen," he said, his smile reaching his eyes. Those eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold that caught the light when he laughed. "The Tokyo investors called. They're willing to move the meeting to next week." Victoria nodded, taking the coffee. "Perfect. What else?" "Board meeting at 10, lunch with the marketing team at 1, and the quarterly review needs your signature by end of day." He hesitated, and Victoria noticed. James never hesitated. "What is it?" she asked, pausing at her office door. He cleared his throat. "I was wondering if I could leave at 5 today instead of staying for the evening conference call. I can set everything up beforehand, of course." Victoria raised an eyebrow. James had never asked to leave early. Not once in 2 years. "Is everything okay? Is Lily all right?" "Lily's fine," he said quickly. "She's staying with my mother tonight. I have a date." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. A date. James had a date. With someone who wasn't her. Someone who had the courage to see him as more than just an employee. "A date," she repeated, her voice impressively steady despite the sudden hollowness in her chest. "It's my first since Sarah died," he admitted, looking almost guilty. "My neighbor set it up. She's a kindergarten teacher at Lily's school." A kindergarten teacher. Of course. Someone warm and nurturing who probably baked cookies and read bedtime stories. Someone who would be good for Lily. Good for James. Someone who wasn't Victoria, with her 60-hour workweeks and emotional unavailability. "Of course you can leave early," she said, forcing a smile. "Take the whole afternoon if you need it." James's face lit up with surprise and gratitude. "Really? Thank you, but I don't need the whole afternoon. 5 will be perfect." Victoria nodded and retreated into her office, closing the door perhaps a bit too firmly. She spent the morning distracted, imagining James with some faceless woman, laughing over dinner, perhaps holding hands across the table. By lunchtime, the kindergarten teacher in her mind had evolved into a Disney princess, beautiful, kind, and everything Victoria wasn't. At 4:30, Victoria emerged from her office to find James straightening his tie in the reflection of his computer screen. He'd changed into a fresh shirt, blue, bringing out the warmth in his complexion. He'd gotten a haircut recently, she realized. How had she not noticed? Everything set for the conference call, he said, looking up. The files are on your desktop, and I've emailed you the talking points. Thank you, Victoria said, leaning against the doorframe. You look nice. James blushed slightly. Thanks. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm a bit nervous. Victoria wanted to tell him not to go. She wanted to confess that for months, she'd been dreaming about what it would be like to be more than his boss. Instead, she said, she's lucky to have dinner with you. James smiled, gathering his coat. I appreciate that. I'll see you tomorrow, Miss Chen. Victoria, she corrected suddenly. After 2 years, I think you can call me Victoria outside of meetings. He looked surprised but pleased. Victoria, he repeated, as if testing how it felt. Have a good evening. And then he was gone, leaving Victoria alone with the realization that she'd fallen in love with her assistant and had been too blind or too cowardly to do anything about it. The conference call dragged on for hours. Victoria answered questions mechanically, her mind elsewhere. When it finally ended at 9 p.m., she found herself unable to go home to her empty penthouse. Instead, she poured herself a glass of whiskey from the bar cabinet and stepped out onto the office balcony. The night air was cool against her skin as she leaned against the railing, looking down at the city below. Somewhere out there, James was on his date. Was he enjoying himself? Would he kiss the kindergarten teacher goodnight? Would this be the beginning of something that would eventually take him away from Victoria completely? The thought was unbearable. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out the emergency pack of cigarettes she'd kept but never used since quitting. One wouldn't hurt. Just to calm her nerves. The first inhale burned her throat, reminding her why she'd quit in the first place. But the second was smoother, bringing with it a rush of nicotine and memories of simpler times. Before she was CEO. Before James. Before she'd built walls so high around herself that no one could scale them. I didn't know you smoked. Victoria nearly dropped the cigarette at the sound of James's voice. She turned to find him standing in the doorway to the balcony, his tie loosened and his expression unreadable. I don't, she said, embarrassed to be caught. Not anymore. This is a moment of weakness. She hesitated. What are you doing here? It's after 9. James stepped onto the balcony, closing the distance between them. My date ended early. Oh. Victoria tried to sound merely curious rather than hopeful. Not a love connection. James leaned against the railing beside her, looking out at the city. She was nice. Pretty. Good with kids. Exactly who I should want. But? Victoria prompted, heart racing. But all I could think about during dinner was how you take your coffee with 1 sugar, not 2 like I brought you last week. How you always touch your left earring when you're thinking hard about something. How you pretend to be tough in meetings but I've seen you cry during phone calls with your mother. He turned to face her. How you gave me time off when Lily had the flu, no questions asked. How you remember her birthday every year. Victoria stared at him, speechless. The cigarette burned forgotten between her fingers. I realized something tonight, James continued. I've been hiding behind my grief, using Sarah's memory and Lily's needs as an excuse not to move forward. But the truth is, I've been afraid. Not of dating again, but of admitting who I really want to be with. James, Victoria whispered, hardly daring to hope. I know it's complicated, he said quickly. I'm your assistant. There are professional boundaries. HR policies. But I needed you to know that I ended my date early because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Victoria dropped the cigarette, crushing it under her heel. I've been thinking about you too, she admitted. For longer than I should have been. James's smile was tentative but real. So what do we do now? Victoria took a deep breath. For once in her life, she didn't have a strategic plan or a PowerPoint presentation to guide her. All she had was the truth. I don't know. But I'd like to figure it out together. Maybe start with dinner? A real date? I'd like that, James said, reaching for her hand. His fingers were warm against hers, steady and sure. But there's something you should know first. Victoria tensed. What is it? Lily has been asking when she can meet Ms. Victoria outside the office. She thinks you must have a magic wand to make me smile so much when I come home from work. The tension in Victoria's chest dissolved into something warm and bright. I'd love to meet Lily properly. No magic wand, though. Just me. Just you is more than enough, James said softly. Under the stars, 20 stories above Manhattan, Victoria Chen, feared CEO and secret romantic, leaned forward and kissed James Sullivan, single father and the man who had somehow slipped past all her defenses. It wasn't the end of their story, but rather the beginning of a new chapter. One they would write together, one day at a time. 6 months later, Victoria sat on a park bench watching James push Lily on the swings. The little girl's laughter carried across the playground, bright and clear as a bell. Victoria had cut back her hours, delegated more responsibilities, and learned that the world didn't end when she left the office before 7. She'd also learned that family could be found in the most unexpected places. Higher, Daddy. Victoria, look how high I'm going. Lily called, her dark pigtails flying. Victoria waved, her heart full. I see you, sweetheart. You're flying. James caught her eye over Lily's head, his smile saying everything words couldn't. They still had challenges, balancing work and home life, navigating office politics. James had transferred to a different department to avoid conflicts of interest, and helping Lily understand that Victoria wasn't trying to replace her mother. But they faced each obstacle together, stronger as a unit than they had ever been apart. That night, after tucking Lily into bed with stories and kisses, Victoria and James sat on the balcony of his modest apartment, sharing a bottle of wine. Any regrets? James asked, his fingers intertwined with hers. Victoria thought about her life before, the lonely nights, the empty achievements, the cigarette she'd lit in a moment of despair. Not a single one, she said honestly. Except maybe waiting so long to tell you how I felt. We got there in the end, James said, kissing her temple. That's what matters. As the city lights twinkled around them, Victoria realized that true success wasn't measured in promotions or profit margins. It was found in moments like these, quiet, perfect, and completely irreplaceable. She had finally learned what her father never could, that power and love weren't mutually exclusive. You just had to be brave enough to reach for both. Sometimes the most important business decision is choosing happiness. Sometimes the most powerful move a CEO can make is lighting a cigarette, then putting it out to embrace something better. And sometimes, the most beautiful love stories begin with 6 simple words, "Boss, I have a date tonight." If this story touched your heart, remember that love often hides in plain sight. Don't wait for someone else's date to realize what's in front of you. Like and subscribe for more stories that remind us all that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the ultimate strength.